Zombie apocalypse. What's going on, everybody? It's Pat Voss. Welcome to the Honesty Podcast. Of course, you know, on YouTube and Patreon, 5 days a week. It's Monday through Friday. You can catch my vlog series every single Saturday. Like today, you can go ahead and catch my interview series. And Sundays is a new Q&A session. I'm rebranding it as the Honesty Hour, so go check that out as well. Obviously, you can reach me at Honesty Podcast on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Pat Voss 12 on Snapchat. And if you're not already a patron, go ahead and sign up on patreon.com/Honesty Podcast. I'd much appreciate the support. But today, let's focus on an internet Saturday special interview. It's Anthony Tran, marketingaccesspass.com. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Patrick? Happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you. You know, I'm the way that this interview series is going so far. I just had Kate Erickson on. I now have you. I have John Lee Dumas on the 16th. I'm trying to pull some strings to get Gary V on the show. So a few other things going on there too. But I'm so glad you were able to make it on, and I'm glad that you agreed to the interview. But for everybody out there in Honesty Podcast land, I know I have a few listeners out there that don't know you. So for those that don't, what do you do?
So, my background kind of started just like yourself. I had a show called Marketing Access Pass. It was a podcast interviewing online entrepreneurs, and my business had evolved through time as I was working through the podcast industry, and found that there was this huge need for people who are building an online business but needed help with the website, and specifically website design on WordPress. And there was something that I had always loved to do, was learn how the technology piece. And I've been, building websites for the past 11 years, and it was a natural progression. So long story short, my wife and I both run a website design business supporting online entrepreneurs. And we have support programs. We build landing pages, membership sites, virtual summits, everything that people could think of as building the platform for their online business.
And I want to get to that as well. Obviously, that'll be the main topic of discussion today. But for the podcast that you said you started, the Marketing Access Pass, how long ago was that?
That was, gosh, I can't remember, 2013. So 4 years ago. Geez, time flies by.
and then how long ago did you launch the design for as far as landing pages and helping out with web design?
3 years. So a year after being in the business. Okay, so let me give you a little backstory. I don't know how much time we have, but
you have all the time.
So basically in 2013, I met John Lee Dumas, and I heard his podcast, and I met him in person in October of 2012. And I thought, wow, this guy is just like doing so well with podcasting. I really like what he's doing. And I thought this would be fun too. And, I had been thinking about building an online business for years before that too. But ultimately, I decided to make the entrepreneur leap. I met him on a Saturday. It was crazy. I spoke to him Saturday morning. He's like, hey, I'm having a barbecue down in San Diego. Why don't you come by? And I was like, sweet, let's do it. So I drove down there and told my wife, hey, I'm going to make change plans today. We're going to drive down and meet this guy named John Lee Dumas. And I met his mastermind group called Fire Nation Elite. And it just felt comfortable. I felt this is what I should be doing. And I asked him, hey, would you be interested in coaching me? And he's like, I'm pretty busy. I don't know if I can fit you in, but let me check. And he got back to me, said, I got one spot left. If you want to start, let's do it. So I went with a one-on-one coaching program. That's how I met John and Kate. Super nice people, super great, good friends. And I just quit my job. I put in my 2 weeks notice, and I said, let's do this. And luckily my wife was super supportive and said, honey, you've been thinking about this for years. I'll let you do this for a year. But the caveat was, if you jump and you leap, I want to quit my job in 1 year later. So I was like, okay, so let's do it. And I was like, and so the time was ticking, and I had, some money, a little bit of money set aside, thinking it was a year, but 6 months into it, all of my money quickly drained. And 6 months into it, wasn't making any money. And I said, gosh, this is this is getting close. And then, as the months got closer, my wife's like, all right, either you figure this out or you go back to work. And I'm like, oh man, I'm not going to go back. And so I'm literally at the 11th month going, shoot, how do I replace my salary? And how am I going to help my wife quit her job? So I kept getting requests from all these podcasters saying, dude, my site looks different now, but back then it was like a personal brand podcast website. And they were like, love your website. How did you do it? I just kept going, can you help me with mine? And at first I was like, no, I don't do that. That's not what I do. And eventually I said, you know what? It's either go back or start making some money. So I started taking in clients. And once I started taking in clients, like the floodgates opened. Like, I don't know how it happened, but it was like word of mouth. People just started sharing. And I just started getting influx of clients. And my wife's, and I told my wife, I'm like, honey, I am really busy and I'm going to need your help. So I think this is the right time for you to quit your job. And she's just like, all right, let's do it. And
confidence is inspiring.
So anyways, long story. But if you really wanted to know that's how it all kind of started.
And I appreciate it. I mean, we don't have a cap on this. It takes as long as it takes. I'm not worried about it for as far as the interview. So thank you so much for sharing. Another thing that people don't know about myself is that there's a couple different things. So I suffer from type 1 bipolar disorder and anxiety disorder. I was medicated and diagnosed in 2013. And ever since then, struggles have been up and down, but I'm a big advocate for NAMI, for mental illness. I go out to rallies. I go out to do speaking engagements in Chicago. I haven't been able to travel outside the Midwest as of yet, but I do support that as well. And I'm trying to get that to be a reality, as well as with the podcast. When I first started, when I first started the podcast last year, I believe, I watched your video on social networking and how to use Twitter to grow your podcast. I watched that video along with JLD, how to market yourself, how to, and Pat Flynn's video or video series rather about how to start a podcast and how to, what kind of is the right setup to go with. So all of you guys were big inspirations to me as far as how I got started. Now that I'm started, a lot of people don't know it's not just a sports podcast. And obviously now they're figuring this out. I'm not just interviewing sports, or actors and actresses and sports figures. No, it's entrepreneurs. It's people that started their own businesses, people that have an inspiration and a drive behind them that really got them started and keeps them going today, where I'm sure, do you do any kind of like keynote speaking engagements, or is it mostly all through business driven to the website?
It's funny you asked about the speaking. I'm actually going to be speaking at the podcast cruise coming up in, I think, a week and a half from now. So, I've spoken at Podcast Movement, Podcasts, San Diego, some other local events, workshops. So, yeah, I do speaking from time to time, but, most of the time it's through social media, building connections with people. It's an amazing thing where you just put yourself out there, you just start attracting the right audience. Like you said, I created that YouTube video like 2 or 3 years ago, and it's amazing to hear people like yourself who find value in it, and then, want to reach out to me. So yeah, it's that whole content marketing thing. You just attract people when you give value.
And not to, kiss up to you or anything else. That's not what I'm trying to do by what I'm about to say. But the reason I enjoyed that video, and this is the reason why I enjoy your videos and your channel and JLD and other people, but mostly your video, the reason it attracted me to it and it kept me watching is because you took something that people freak out about, and every single day, how do I create more business? How do I create my podcast and really get started? And what do I need to do to network properly? And to me, that video, at least in one sense, really simplified for people exactly what you need to be doing. And that's why I love what you do with your channel, is because you simplify everything. And that's, I love it. It's like the For Dummies books. It needs to happen because there's people out there that, I mean, yes, I had a sense of how to build on social media, but watching that video, it helped give me a sense of confidence. Like, okay, he says it. I've looked at his channel. I've looked at his website. I've watched his videos. I know he knows how to do it. And that gave me the extra confidence of, oh, I can do it too. And now here I go. So, one thing I didn't want to ask is, after you met JLD and you asked him and you got on, you started the course with him, what was it that you got out of that course that was specific to what you do now? Like, what is it, if one or two things or a couple things that you could apply from the course that really helps you in day-to-day what you do now?
Oh, you mean, well, I had the Podcaster's Paradise course, but you talking about specifically like the coaching or the
coaching? I'm sorry, the coaching.
Okay, yeah. So, one of the things that John and I, the reason I felt like I had a connection with him was because we were both prior military and we both did ROTC. He was in the Army, I was in the Air Force, and we kind of went around the same time. We both did served in Iraq and deployments, and I felt like at least I knew him in that sense where we like to follow structure and processes and procedures. And, that was just one thing that kind of reinforced with me watching him run his business is he creates systems and processes for everything. And that's definitely something that I've created where I knew if I was going to get my wife to learn the business, because she comes from a commercial loan processing side of the business. She's been doing it for years.
Okay.
So to bring her on and teach her social media and teach her online marketing, like it was a totally left field for her. Like she had no idea what she was walking into. And I knew like, well, you know what? He taught Kate how to do this. And I'm like, okay, how does he do this? And so one of the things that he shared was, whenever you do something, most of the time you do it the same way again and again and again. So you do it once, and if you maybe do it twice, and then write down every single step, like literally step by step by step. I click here, I write this, I do this, and I documented it and I put it into like a program called like Trello, for example, and I use screenshots to show and word by word everything. And yeah, it takes a lot of work in the beginning, but it allowed someone like my wife who had no experience to walk in and go, okay, how do I post something on Twitter? And then it's like a full step-by-step process. Okay, you log in, you do this, you click here, you put this hashtag, and then how do you find the graphic, blah, 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 use this system. And so through repetition, of course, she eventually understood how it works. And then, I gave her one more thing and in addition, one more thing. And eventually after a year or 2 years of things, she learns how to do a whole bunch of stuff. And now she does web design too. And it's an amazing transformation, but I learned that from him because, he had to do it for his own business, for his VAs and Kate and his business partners. So that was definitely one thing. And then I would just share one more thing, is he told me, focus. He uses acronym and it never left my brain, which is follow one course until success. So focus. And that was huge because back then I was kind of everywhere. I felt like I had to do everything and be everywhere. I was like, I got to speak, I got to post, I got to blog post, I got to do podcasts, I got to do social media, I got to, everything you could think of. I was like everywhere. And what it really came down to was, 80% of your results come from 20% of your things that you do. So it's the 80-20 rule, I found out that there was certain things that I did in my business that drove the most revenue, that drove the most traffic, that drove the most leads, and drove the most conversions. And there was a lot of things that I did that were great for business branding, credibility, but didn't necessarily convert that into actual dollars. And for me, it's like I want to enable to support the family, my wife, my son, pay the mortgage and do all the things that I want to do. I had to focus on what was converting the money, So that's kind of the main things that I learned from him. Focus and also documenting process and procedures.
Well, a couple of different things. One, thank you for your service. I appreciate it. Two, the fact that you learned those processes and then you were able to teach them to your wife, who was, like you said, complete left field for her. I love that it is a teachable and a learnable type of way to go about things, a process. And I like that someone who has not done it before, you've shown that you can learn it, then you go and teach it, and it is learnable. So that's awesome. Another thing for my podcast, and this is something I wanted to get into because you have had your podcast before. JLD has his now. Pat Flynn has his currently. One, the setup that you have there. What kind of headphones do you have?
These are the Audio Technica, what was it, M30X series, I think. If you Google best podcast equipment, you'll see I created 3 video series that goes through like the best headphones and microphones to use, depending on your different budget. Like the first video talks about the best headphone and microphone if your budget's like less than $100. And then the next one I think is like a $200 setup, and next one is after that is like a $400 or $500 setup. So
because you had I believe you had the Rode Podcaster in your last one.
Oh yeah. It's actually the microphone sitting back there.
That's another thing I wanted to ask, because I noticed, I believe you have a Heil PR40 sitting in front of you. And that's a great mic, and I hear amazing things about it. Although for the pricing, and this is something I've, like you said, people with a budget, your budget, everybody's different. So for you, I believe that's like a $300 microphone.
Yeah.
Okay. Versus a Rode Podcaster or Procaster, which is, I believe, about $230 or so.
Uh-huh.
My question would be, do you think it would be a good idea for, as far as vocally for me, to go ahead and bypass the Podcaster to go to a Procaster with a mixer straight into the laptop?
I mean, it depends on what you want. I mean, honestly, you sound great. I don't feel like it was, if you didn't say anything, I would have been like, hey, he sounds great. I don't really recommend you need to get anything, I mean, something as like an easy as an ATR 2100, like, sounds great. And I've interviewed with other podcasters who've used that, and it's like a $67 microphone. And I'm like, hey, you sound great. And listening to the interview, I'm like, it's not the difference is like so minute that I think sometimes podcasters, we kind of get hung up too much on the technical stuff.
Yeah.
And we don't focus on, what really people care about, which is the content, the presentation. You can get an expensive microphone, but if your interview style, if your show style, if the way you ask questions, there's a lot of things, that come into making a great show. If those things are not on par, like, the microphone is not going to make your show better.
Right.
It'd be different. It'd be different if you're using like the built-in speaker, and then you switch over. Then you could hear a huge difference. But from the setup you're using and the first setup mine, I'm pretty sure whoever's listening to this they're not going to know that much of a difference.
No, and they won't. And that's the thing, is listening to me. I'm on a Blue Yeti. It's the Blackout Edition. It's only about a $100 mic. It's usually about $130, but if you go to certain retailers, it's about $100. And yeah, no, great sound. It's not about the sound. It's actually about the setup is the reason I was asking. Because with the Podcaster, the sound would be exactly like this. It would be exactly like the Blue Yeti, because it is a USB. But it's all about having the arm, because when I move into a new place, I will have a desk. I will have the lighting. I'll have everything set where it can come from the side, which is what I prefer, only because I come from a radio background. I used to do production and on air for radio. So I'm so used to having a microphone in my face instead of in front of me, where unfortunately it's something, and this is for people that aren't listening to the audio side of this. If you're listening to the audio, what I'm pointing to is my Blue Yeti basically sticking up in front of me slightly, but sticking up in front of me as like a stand during all my interviews and my vlog series. So what I would like to do is have it on an arm and about right here. That way it's right where it's adjustable. I don't have to pick up the big blue Yeti. You know, that's kind of the difference. Now about sound, that's where I was torn between the Podcaster and the Procaster. Yeah,
so you could actually do the arm with the Yeti or the Rode Podcaster or even the ATR 2100. So yeah, so definitely check out video 2 and video 3 of that best podcast equipment series, because I show that you can buy an arm, you can connect an ATR 2100, which is I think a $65 mic. Sounds great, perfect for the price, and you can connect it, and it works just like this, where it's on a mount arm, it swivels, it can move out of your way, it frees up your arm space, and the same setup, the same boom arm, you can connect the Rode Podcaster, or I've also seen people connect the Yeti. So a lot of the microphones have ability to connect to boom arms. You just might have to find one that is compatible for it, but a lot of them do have that capability. So you can go either way.
I'll definitely check out that.
Yeah,
definitely check out that YouTube series too, because I did watch the final video. Now I started on the first video, but then I noticed your third video had the Rode Podcaster in it, so I wanted to check that out as well. So I definitely will check out that series again, and of course your channel, so people know where they can find me. Where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, if people want to check out marketingaccesspass.com, that's where they can find our web design services, and then they also can listen to my podcast series there, so you can check it out, and then have links to my YouTube channel, Twitter, and all that stuff. So yeah, the home base is marketingaccesspass.com.
I appreciate it. Oh, Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the interview today and then sitting down with me. This has been Anthony Tran of marketingaccesspass.com, helping for website design, rather. Sorry. And then, of course, you can reach me at Honesty Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, of course, PadVos12 on Snapchat. Again, every single Sunday we have the Honesty Hour now, and that will be a different plethora of subjects every single Sunday. It'll be up on YouTube as well as Patreon, and that is the main thing that I'm driving right now. So a lot of people that know me know that I am looking for 50 to 100 patrons max at only $1 an episode. I put out 8 great pieces of content a month on patreon.com/honestypodcast. It's the 4 interviews a month and the 4 honesty hours a month. And then as you move up the tiers, there is more one-on-one social media presence, training with myself, and of course, more Q&As that you can come into personally with me, as well as free merchandise giveaways as you move up. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today, Anthony, and I really appreciate you stopping by.
Hey, thanks for having me, Patrick.
All right. We'll see you next Saturday, and of course, we'll see you, actually, it's Wednesday today. We will see you on Thursday when this airs on YouTube. And I will shoot over the link to Anthony, and you'll see it on his social media as well, I gather. But we will see you next Saturday on patreon.com/honestypodcast with another great interview series special. This has been the Honesty Podcast.